Good morning, everyone. We're going to start up. I'd like to call the meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority to order on January 11th, 2017 at 9:03. Mr. Tejas, any public comment?
No, ma'am, none received.
Okay. Item number 3, adoption of minutes for the CRRMA board meeting of December 14th, 2016. Everyone got those?
Second.
It's been moved and approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 3 has been approved. Okay, I'm going to read items 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're going to talk about those together. So item number 4, discussion and action on a board resolution approving the form and authorizing the execution delivery of a second supplemental trust indenture to make certain clarifying changes and other revisions to the existing vehicle registration fee master trust indenture and enacting other matters related thereto. Item 5, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the issuance of subordinate lien vehicle registration fee revenue bonds, Series 2017, in an amount not to exceed $35 million. Approving the form and authorizing the execution and delivery of a third supplemental indenture. Authorizing the execution and delivery of a purchase agreement. Approving an official statement related to such bonds and enacting other provisions related thereto. Item number 6. Discussion and action on a board resolution selecting an underwriter syndicate for the proposed Series 2017 vehicle registration fee bond issuance. And item number 7, discussion and action on a term assignment agreement which provides for the town of Horizon to assign transportation reinvestment zone revenues to secure repayment obligations for a portion of the cost of the East Lake Boulevard Phase 2 roadway project. Mr. Tejas.
Thank you very much. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So as read into the record, there are 4 separate items on the agenda today that deal specifically with the projects that are being developed under the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. And specifically, these 4 items deal with various aspects of the bonds that have been issued to date and the bonds that we are proposing to issue based off of the vehicle registration fee that the County of El Paso has implemented. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a very general overview of what these 4 items do. Then I'm going to ask Mr. Wayne Placide from Hilltop Securities, which is the Regional Mobility Authority's financial advisor. I'm going to ask him to approach the podium. He'll walk you through some of the bond details, the proposed bond details. And then we'll have Paul Braden, who serves as the Regional Mobility Authority's bond counsel. He'll come to the podium and specifically walk you through the documents under item 4 and 5 and explain what those bond documents do. And so that's how we'll handle it. Now, of course, stop me as I go through this, but again, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of these 4 items. But in order to do that, I wanted to touch very briefly on the relationship that the Regional Mobility Authority has with the county. As you know, we have entered into various agreements which authorize, or I should say, whereby the county has assigned its vehicle registration fee revenues to the Regional Mobility Authority. The Regional Mobility Authority then went out and implemented completed its master trust indenture, which was done back in 2014. And that's the master agreement that includes all the general terms and conditions for future bond issuances off of the vehicle registration fee. And in fact, at the same time, the Regional Mobility Authority Board also approved the first supplemental indenture, which then authorized and actually issued the initial vehicle registration fee bonds of $72 million. So what you see before you under item number 4 is a second supplemental indenture, which makes revisions to the master. Excuse me, and it's really more cleanup than anything. There's a few additional provisions that are being added to tweak the master trust indenture. Item 5 then is the third supplemental indenture, and that is the one that we are seeking approval for today that would allow the Regional Mobility Authority to go forward and issue additional bonds off of the vehicle registration fee revenues that have been pledged by the County of El Paso. Item 6 then is a board resolution authorizing the selection of an underwriter syndicate for the proposed 2017 vehicle registration fee bonds. And then item 7 is a term assignment with Horizon City. And you may recall this item was on an agenda, I want to say about 2-3 months back. The town of Horizon City, and let me back up, what it does is it actually assigns transportation reinvestment zone revenues generated by the town of Horizon City. It assigns those to the Regional Mobility Authority, which in effect is those funds are then being used to replenish the vehicle registration fee proceeds that we are using to construct Eastlake Boulevard Phase 2. Now, you may remember that because when it came to the board the first time, it came with an amendment to a project development agreement with the County of El Paso, which outlined that relationship and outlined how that relationship would work. This item here, as item number 7, then really just memorializes the assignment of the Transportation Reinvestment Zone revenues to the Regional Mobility Authority. So in very general sense, those are the 4 items that we'll be discussing today. I will mention also Mr. Braden has asked that each of the items be taken separately, but I felt it made a lot more sense to read them all into the record so that we can discuss any or all of the 4 together, but I will be asking for independent action on each of the 4 separate items. One other note of importance, the bond documents that are being presented today, so let me back up. In recent discussions with the County of El Paso, we've been discussing, and I'm certain that you've noticed, and in fact Mr. Placide will touch on this as well, interest rates have been increasing. They've been climbing ever since the election. Because of that, the county has asked us, as recently, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, they've asked us to reevaluate a potential SIB, State Infrastructure Bank loan, either in conjunction with this bond issuance or in place of this bond issuance. However, because of the climbing interest rates, we didn't want to delete or postpone this item. I'm requesting specific authorization to pursue this. However, at the same time, we will be evaluating the State Infrastructure Bank approach as requested by the county. But the idea is we don't want to lose any time if, in fact, the SIB, the State Infrastructure Bank option, is not fruitful and doesn't make sense. Then we want to be able to move very quickly back into the bond documents that you are approving today. So, important note, and we can get into that in more detail as we go through the documents if you're interested. However, so at this point, I would like Mr. Wayne Placide from Hilltop Securities to approach the podium. He's got a brief PowerPoint that will walk you through some of the deal points and some of the parties that are involved in this. Mr. Placide.
Thank you, Raymond. Madam Chairperson, members of the board, my name is Wayne Placide. I am a Managing Director with Hilltop Securities, and we serve as your financial advisor. I'd like to walk you through a presentation. Just to give you some background on the financing and the legislation. In 2013, the state passed House Bill 1198, which enabled El Paso County to increase the registration fee by $10, starting in January 1, 2014. The vehicle registration fee can only be used by the Camino Real RMA or another RMA. In 2014, we issued the first issue of bonds that were secured by that pledge. $68.4 million was issued in 2014. Page 2, we're planning, as was mentioned by Mr. Tess, is that we're looking at issuing a Series 2017 bonds that will be secured by the same pledge. When we first started out, we were approaching like almost $30 million in par amount. And as was mentioned earlier, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the latter part of the presentation, interest rates have increased fairly dramatically. And as a result, what that's done is reduce our capacity. And so right now, we're probably more closer to 26.8 million than 29. As mentioned earlier, the purpose of the financing is to finance the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan, which have been amended. And the pledge agreement was later amended on December 2nd, 2016. And again, these amendments are adding additional projects, in some cases removing projects from the plan, the mobility plan. Right now, the intention is to go forward, as was mentioned by Mr. Tess, we're looking at moving forward with the bond transaction and we will, on a parallel basis, we will be also looking at an alternative form of financing, the SIB loan from TxDOT, and make a determination if, again, that can be used in conjunction with the bonds or in place of those. And the effort here is to try and generate as much proceeds as possible that will enable the county to complete as many projects as possible. And that's the whole purpose of this effort. Right now, we're planning, assuming that we go forward, the bond transaction would be to price the bonds in February and a closing in late March. Just to give you an overview of what's involved in a bond transaction and who the major participants are. Obviously, you're the issuer. You'll be issuing the bonds, and we're responsible for all the debt service related to the bond issue. In addition to that, we have your auditors would provide the audited financials that will be made a part of the offering document. Your general counsel, who is Locke Lord, would review the documents as well. Bond counsel, who is Norton Rose and Fulbright, has an important role, and their major efforts is to ensure that the bonds are in compliance with state law as well as tax law. The bonds, that we are authorized to issue the bonds. And secondly, that the interest paid by the bonds will be tax exempt to the holders of the bonds. And that's, in that effort, they ensure that we meet all of the IRS requirements and relating to that. We also will seek a rating. Last time we did this transaction, we were successful in getting a AA- rating from S&P, and we've been in contact with them, and we'll be requesting an additional rating on this 2000 Series 17. As financial advisor, our responsibility, we have a fiduciary responsibility to Camino Real to ensure that the bonds are issued in a manner that does not subject you to any additional risks, that they're based on all of the facts in place, that the transaction will be feasible, the revenue will be sufficient to meet debt service, and that we should not present any additional risk to the authority. The trustee act on behalf of the bondholders. That would be Bank of New York Mellon, and they act on behalf of the bondholders. They receive the payments, make sure the payments are made in a timely manner, and keep the bondholders informed on any changes that deviate from the bond indenture. The other party is the underwriters, who will actually be selected to actually underwrite the bonds. And their purpose is to sell the bonds in the public market to investors. Page 4 is just kind of a brief overview of kind of what I said regarding the roles of everyone. And then it continues on page 5. And then, so going to page 7, in January of 2014, RFP was issued by the CRRMA to solicit proposals from firms that were interested in serving as an underwriter to the 2014 series bonds. We received 17 proposals, and after extensive evaluation, this is the pool of firms that was selected to serve in your pool. The firms who served on your first transaction in 2014 are listed on page 8. That include Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Raymond James, Estrada Hinojosa, and Ramirez and Company. For the 2016 transaction, we're recommending that we use the following firms that were not involved in the 2014 issue: Citi, Stifel Nicholas, and Cabrera Capital Markets will be serving as the underwriters for the 2017. Might add that, again, because of the size of the 2017 is a lot smaller. It's about half of the size of the 2014. As a result, we will not need as many underwriters as we did for that transaction. Page 10 is just an indication. As we mentioned earlier, since the election on November 8, the Capital markets have acted positive, and some have not so been so positive. The stock market has done extremely well. Market's been up, almost approaching 2,000. The fixed income market has not done quite as well. The taxable market, treasuries, as well as tax exempt, have saw some significant increases since the election. In fact, since the election, the bond buy index for revenue bonds is up about 45 basis points. And so therein lies the statement that I made earlier. When we first started this process, we were looking at a par amount about $30 million in proceeds for projects. Because of the increase in the rates, it's reduced our capacity. So at this point in time, based on current market, we're probably looking at $26.8 million. That's where we are. That concludes my comments. I'll be glad to address any questions anyone may have.
Any questions or comments?
If I could, Madam Chair. Question.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question regarding, and maybe this is more for Mr. Tejas, but you're proposing to move forward on these bond sales and going through the process about still evaluating the SIB loan. Are there, in the event that you decide the SIB loan is a better alternative, are we incurring cost of going through this process of trying to get ready to sell these bonds that will incur if we change over, or is it just kind of a preliminary process?
So there are costs involved in either track. However, the way that the financial advisor agreement is set up, they are paid upon the issuance of debt. So if there's a SIB loan, then the financial advisor, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's a SIB loan issued, then the financial advisor is paid off of the SIB loan terms. If there's a bond issuance, then the financial advisor is paid off of those terms.
So there's not a double cost. They get paid regardless of what avenue.
That's correct. Right. Now, and in either event, the payment comes from either the bond proceeds or out of the SIB loan proceeds as well.
That is correct. We would be paid for either the bonds or the SIB. And I might add to that, the only way we get paid is if we complete a transaction. If for any reason a transaction doesn't go forward, then we would not be entitled to any payment.
That decision will be made. Will that come back to the board once you evaluate the SIB loan?
So the idea then is that we're working very closely with the county, and that includes the county attorney's office, the commissioner's court offices has been kind of plugging in and out, the county auditors, various financial folks as well. So we're working very closely with them. We hope to resolve the question of the SIB loan if collectively we determine that the SIB loan makes sense, then we would have to come back to you. If it doesn't make sense, then what I'm proposing is today the authorization that we proceed forward with the bond issuance, and then I would simply let you know through an email or something like that, essentially saying, okay, the SIB deal didn't quite work out, wasn't as favorable as the bond issuance, so we're proceeding with the bond issuance.
And I have one more question. You are recommending a change to the underwriter based on the list of qualified companies, if I understand correctly. What was your basis for selecting the ones you selected? Was there a process, or is it just?
Yes, with respect to that, in January of 2014, we went out for an RFP, and we had a selection committee that included a number of people. I think we had a couple representatives from the city as well participating. And we ranked, and we had a criteria, which was experience, their capital, and we ranked the firms based on that. So the first group that was selected was the highest ranking group. And so the thought was that we would go back to the pool and select the firms who were not selected for the first transaction. The other thing is the senior manager who we are recommending, City, has been very active in providing ideas to Raymond as well as to myself with respect to the financing, so they've been trying to be helpful. So that's the basis for it. I mean, we conducted an RFP, selected a pool. The first transaction, we selected the firm that was highly rated, and then now we're going back to the pool to select the firms who were in the pool but were not participants in the first transaction.
So the RFP that you put out, did it specify that it would just be a selection based at our discretion, or rotating basis? I just want to make sure that process is fair and that we're considering all.
So to expand on this, we utilize this underwriting pool very similar to the way that we use the pre-approved engineering firms. So we rotate through them. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. That's all the questions for now.
Any additional questions?
If not, I would ask Mr. Braden to walk us through the bond document, specifically item number 4, which is the second supplemental trust indenture, and item number 5, which is the third supplemental.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. As Raymond mentioned, for the record, my name is Paul Braden. I'm a partner with Norton Rose Fulbright, and we represent the RMA as its bond counsel. I'm sort of batting cleanup here. And some of this I'm going to tell you is going to sound familiar because Raymond has said it or Wayne has said it. And I think the intent is that if three of us say it and say it in slightly different ways, that some of it will sink into some people and some of it will make sense to other people. So I'll go through a similar presentation, at least with respect to my two items. So as been described, what happened in 2014 is the RMA adopted a master trust indenture, and you can think of that as an umbrella document that covers what we're doing right now. And in 2014, the first thing that we did is we did a first supplemental under that umbrella document, and that first supplemental authorized the 2014 bonds. And when we constructed that structure, we expected to and built it so that we expected to issue bonds in the future under supplemental indentures. The item number 4 in terms of the second supplemental indenture is really tweaking the existing structure. It's tweaking the master trust indenture. So the second supplemental indenture, it actually makes 3 changes to the master trust indenture, and they can really be grouped as 2 things. One of them is it's adding the revenue stream from item number 7, the Horizon City revenue stream, to underneath the indenture. And it's putting it in a specific place in the indenture pursuant to discussions with the county and Horizon City. So the intent is that there's a waterfall set out in your indenture, and that talks about how the vehicle registration fee, the revenues come through the waterfall. The last basket in the waterfall is surplus revenues. In essence, money left over after you pay all the costs associated with the indenture and the bonds that are outstanding and being issued. That surplus revenue basket is what's being used to fund the portion of the East Lake Phase 2 project that Horizon City is repaying you for. So when Horizon City repays you for that portion, the money they give you has to go into that same basket. And so that's one of these changes we're doing, is we're subjecting that agreement and the payments that are coming from Horizon City to go specifically into that part of the trust indenture. The other 2 changes have to do with investments and how the language works. Basically, as it has evolved and the working relationship between the county, the RMA, and the trustee has evolved, it's become clear that there's some clarifications in language. Largely at the county's request, they wanted the language as drafted was appropriate for an RMA, and in terms of what had to be collateralized or secured, the county wanted more reflective of what county funds would be required. In essence, they're sort of asking the RMA and the trustee to treat this revenue fund as if it were county money, which it starts at the county and then it goes to the RMA. There's nothing wrong with that. It's more restrictive than what's technically required under law for you all to do, but the trustee is agreeable and the RMA is agreeable, and it's just of a technical thing, so that's the other corrections or clarifications are being made to that indenture. Because of the nature of those changes in the indenture, which are technical in nature and adding something to the revenue stream, no consent of the existing bondholders required. The trustee has to consent and agree, which they have. And then my law firm gives an opinion stating that these changes don't adversely affect the outstanding bonds or make them, make them taxable in essence. And so under that provisions, you can move forward and the trustee can move forward under the changes to the MTI. So that's basically what item 4 is, the second supplemental is. With respect to item 5, as has been discussed, that's, again, we're working within the master trust indenture umbrella, and the third supplemental is authorizing the issuance of the subordinate bonds. So the MTI has this revenue stream, a waterfall that shows how the money comes down, and one of the buckets of the money provided for subordinate and lien bonds. So the senior lien bonds, the existing 2014 bonds, get the first bite of the apple, actually about the third, because the trustee gets paid first and a couple other things. But they get the first big bite of the apple. And then after that, the subordinate lien bonds would be paid, and reserve funds associated with the subordinate lien bonds would be paid. So when these bonds are sold to the market, the people buying them know that. They understand that that's what's happening and that they're behind the senior liens. Interest rates will be taken into account that will reflect that. But that's the way the stream works. So the third supplemental is being done to do that. And the resolution authorizing the third supplemental is delegating to a pricing officer, which is either the chair or, in her absence, the executive director, the authority to move forward with the bond deal within certain specified parameters. Those parameters are found in the resolution on section 1.2 of the resolution. And basically, the aggregate true interest cost of TIC can't exceed 6% per annum. The aggregate original principal amount to be issued can't exceed $35 million. As Wayne has indicated, it's well under that. But we did have some room there. For some reason, interest rates went the other way, and there was a lot of capacity. The bonds have to mature no later than 2047, and then the bonds have to be rated as an investment-grade rating. So these bonds, if issued, would have to be investment-grade bonds. This delegation is in place good for 180 days, so you have 6 months in which to pricing officer to actually use this delegation. If for some reason we didn't go into the market within that 6 months period, we'd have to come back to the board to get a new authorization. So that's basically how it works. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Questions? Okay.
So that's what we have for you under items 4, 5, 6, and 7. I think I briefly touched on 6 and 7, the underwriting syndicate, and then also the term assignment agreement with the Town of Horizon City as item number 7. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of each.
Can I ask one question? If you want.
Go ahead.
I have a question on item 7, if that's okay.
Yes.
I just want to understand how this works in terms of the Town of Horizon assigning its transportation and reinvestment funds to us. Is there some kind of guarantee? In other words, I assume there's an estimate of what they estimate they're going to be getting in terms of those funds, and those bonds are sold based on that projected revenue. In the event that that is not the case, is there some type of guarantee for the Town of Horizon to make up that, or do we continue to get payments based on that fund until we're made whole?
So two things. One big important distinction is that the repayment by the Town of Horizon City is not part of the bond deal. And what I mean by that is the bonds will be paid back by the vehicle registration fee proceeds, not by the Town of Horizon City. So in effect, what is happening is that we're using vehicle registration fee proceeds to complete the project, and then Horizon City, over a period of time, will then reimburse that amount. A certain specified amount is noted within the agreement, but that, in effect, becomes additional funds available for use against the 2013 Comprehensive Mobility Plan program. So it's an important distinction. But to more directly answer your question, there is a guarantee within the document. I think if I recall, there's a provision that allows us to go directly to the tax collector for Horizon City and make a demand for any payments that were not made from the Transportation Reinvestment Zone Fund.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Wardy?
Just for point of clarification, Mr. Tejas, so is this an agreement between the county and the city of Horizon, or why are we?
Specifically, you're referring to item 7?
Item 7.
So so going back in time, a couple months ago when we first came to you with this item, there was a tri-party project development agreement for East Lake Boulevard Phase 2.
Correct.
And that included the RMA, the Town of Horizon City, and the county. And that's where we structured this relationship that we've all been discussing right now.
Well, I understand that part.
Right.
But
That's the only tri-party agreement that we have. Then subsequent to that, because the RMA is the agency that's managing all of the funds for the Comprehensive Mobility Plan through the vehicle registration fee bond proceeds, That's why this term assignment agreement is only between the Town of Horizon City and the Regional Mobility Authority. So the funds come directly to us and are managed through the trust relationship we have with Bank of New York Mellon. So the county is not a party to item number 7, but they were a party to the prior project development agreement, tri-party agreement.
Okay, that's where I got a little confused. And so are we charging a fee to the city of Horizon for doing this?
We are not charging it to Horizon City. We are charging it against the bond proceeds. So if you recall, we have a percentage, and I will go blank on the percentage right now, but it's about $68,000 a year for overall oversight of the Comprehensive Mobility Plan program through the vehicle registration fee. That same percentage is applied to this bond issuance, so whatever bond proceeds we actually pull down at the end of this process, we would also charge that same percentage. So if it's $30 million that we pull down, we would receive an additional $30,000 a year for oversight of the additional projects that are brought in through this bond issuance. So we're not charging the Town of Horizon City, but we're charging the program, which again is fed by the vehicle registration fee bond proceeds.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? We entertain a motion. We need to take these separately.
Yes, please.
For item number 4.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair, I want to record an abstention on, and I'll be doing so on items 5 through 8 as well. I have a conflict.
Okay. All right, so item number 4 has been approved. Thank you. Item number 5.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll note that
Abstain.
Mr. Eamer will abstain. Item number 6.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Mr. Eamer?
And now, if I could interject here, I don't think that we would require an abstention from Mr. Niemer on this one, as this is the underwriting syndicate, and it did not include county involvement.
On number 6, okay. I'll change and vote aye on number 6.
All right, thank you. Okay, so item number 6 has been approved. Item number 7. Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Eamer. Okay, so we'll go on to item number 8. Thank you, everyone. Discussion and action on, and we're going to take 8 and 9 together, actually.
Yes, ma'am.
So discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the chair to execute an amendment to an interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso for project oversight of additional projects in the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. Then item number 9, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute an amendment to work authorization number 24 with Atkins North America as the RMA's general engineering consultant as it relates to the oversight of additional projects in the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. Mr. Case.
Thank you. So both of these items deal also with the Comprehensive Mobility Plan. As you know, part of our responsibility under the 2013 Comprehensive Mobility Plan is to complete oversight of the design aspects as well as the construction activities involved in the completion of the various projects. The way that we do that is through work authorizations with our general engineering consultant. And more specifically, we actually pull vehicle registration fee bond proceeds in order to pay our general engineering consultant to do those oversight services. So what you're seeing here under item number 8 specifically is an amendment to the project development agreement that we have with the County of El Paso that authorizes us to do the oversight activities related to the design activities on the various projects throughout the Comprehensive Mobility Plan. That amendment specifically is adding 2 projects that the county would like to see designed here soon, and those are Pelicano and Mission Ridge, and in effect it's adding another $420,000 to allow us to complete those oversight of design services. So item 8 then authorizes us to complete design oversight services for Pelicano and Mission Ridge, and also provides the funding for us to compensate our general engineering consultant to do those oversight services. Then under item number 9 is an amendment to the work authorization that we have with our general engineering consultant to complete those those oversight services. So in effect, you're really just seeing the pass-through. The item number 8 authorizes us the funds to do the oversight. Item number 9 then enters into an agreement with the general engineering consultant to do those oversight services for the 2 projects I mentioned. So that's what you have as item number 8 and number 9. Item number 8, which is the amendment with the county, has not been before the Commissioners Court yet. So item number 9 will be held until the Commissioners Court actually approves. So we won't assign item number 9 until item number 8 is fully executed by the county. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval.
Mr. Wardy?
Once again, Mr. Tejas, I just have a question. I'm very concerned about the financial sustainability of the RMA. So what do we charge the county for management for this type of service?
So the management fee that we charge the county is the $68,000 figure I was telling you earlier under the vehicle registration fee 2014 bond issuance. So for that $68,000, we manage the general engineering consultant, we manage the financial advisors and everybody that you heard from earlier today for the proposed second bond issuance. We manage the trustee. Everything associated with the comprehensive mobility plan that the RMA is involved in is paid for through that administrative fee, which is the percentage off of the par amount of the bonds, which under VRF 1 was over $68,000, and I apologize, I don't remember that exact number. But again, if we go forward with the second bond issuance, that $68,000 would increase by a percentage of the actual par amount of the second bond issuance.
Okay, my only point, and this isn't pointed at you, this is a policy issue for the RMA. In order to ensure the financial sustainability of this entity, I have a really good idea, as well as other members of the board, what our operating costs are. And if we're to grow any type of staff at all, which it appears we're going to have to do as a result of something that happened last year, we're going to have to create some revenue. And I'm not saying we're going to gouge anybody, but I think we need a thorough evaluation of a fee schedule that we are going to begin to charge entities for the various services that we provide. I personally, with no disrespect, I know we have an agreement, believe that $68,000 in no way compensates us for our time and efforts for such a massive project. I don't think anybody sitting in this room would sign up to do a deal for $68,000 on the work that you're doing. So this isn't pointed at you, Mr. Tejas. This is a policy issue for the RMA. I think we're going to have to put an item on the agenda to discuss a proposed fee structure and look at what other RMAs are charging for entities, because we have got to generate some revenue to assure the financial sustainability of this mobility authority. Just for the record.
Mr. Tess, if we go the SIB route, how do we do our fees on that? If we do, will it come out of the proceeds?
We would likely charge a fee for that up front, and it would be rolled into the issuance costs, is how I anticipate if we were to go forward with that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warder. I think that's something we need to look at, Mr. Taz, and I don't know if we need to have it in one of our subcommittees to look at first, to bring in, and what would be interesting too, Mr. Taz, if we can find out what other RMAs are doing across the state.
Yes, ma'am.
That would give us some sort of benchmark for us to look at.
Certainly, I can look at that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to, I don't recall when bond monies are raised and before they're spent, they're accruing some kind of interest. What happens to that revenue?
All revenues within the trust stay within the trust, so they get reinvested in, or I should say, they stay within the trust and they become eligible for use as eligible expenses, which is in effect additional projects or really any expenses associated with the management of the CMP program. But
it's fungible, or it's pledged just to the particular project that generates the income?
No, so it goes into the trust, which is then used for any of the other projects. So in other words, there's no one project that generates X dollars. It's the program that generates all the funds. So you could use them across the board.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tanis, taking on what Mr. Wardy said, when we approve, for example, item 9, I mean, do we have the ability to negotiate different fee, or are we legally bound to the original agreement, what that fee will be for all projects that are added?
Each of the work authorizations that we enter into with our general engineering consultant is based off of their master agreement. So the way that the general engineering consultant relationship works is that we've got a master agreement, and then each task or each project that we pursue has a separate work authorization. However, the rates are embedded within the master agreement with certain increases based on years and that sort of thing.
What I mean was with the county. So we have an agreement with the county
Oh,
for a set of projects, and as we go, they add projects that we administer. Is the fee that we are being paid to administer those projects, as Mr. Wardy pointed out, fixed regardless of how many projects we're managing at once? Or do we have the ability of saying, well, on this new project, we want X more because it
Right.
requires these things?
sorry.
And I don't
I was looking at the wrong
renegotiate.
item.
We have a basis to renegotiate, but I'm just trying to understand, are we locked in with the county on this set fee?
Yes, ma'am. So and I apologize, I was looking at the wrong item. So under the vehicle registration fee, the initial issuance, which was supplemental number 1, that fee is fixed. And it's proposed to be fixed under this second, or I should say the third supplemental as well.
There you go. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So 8, 9.
This, and I should mention too, I'm sorry, just real briefly, back in 2014, I want to say it was right around that exact time when the board started talking about charging fees, because prior to that, there were several projects that the RMA just did and didn't charge a fee for. This was one of the first ones where we actually came out and identified a fee and implemented that fee for the management expenses incurred. So at that time, we felt that this percentage was appropriate. But certainly, if that's something that it sounds like that's something that needs to be reevaluated.
Just a follow-up question. So the fee is set in 2014. Does the agreement have some provision for, like we would do in real estate, a CPI increase or something? I mean, because we're doing these projects 3-4 years later, and obviously the cost to us to administer that project increases every year. Is that something that's built in already?
It is not. So the way that it's structured is that it is a percentage, and I want to say it's 0.1% of the par amount of the bonds. So the par amount of the initial issuance was $68,450,000, something along those lines. So we receive a percentage of that. So it's whatever that initial par amount is, we receive on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we take 8, 9 together or separately?
Yes, you can take them together if you'd like.
Madam Chair, I have a conflict on 8, but I'm free man on 9, so
Okay, we'll do them separately then. So on item number 8,
Motion to approve?
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Abstain.
opposed? You're abstaining on 8. And then item number 9.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to item number 10. Discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing change order number 2 to the rail vehicle contract for remanufacture of PCC cars with Brookville Equipment Corporation for the addition of various PCC improvements, all related to the El Paso streetcar project. Mr. Tejas.
Yes, ma'am. So this item deals specifically with Brookville Equipment Corporation. They are the entity that is tasked with the remanufacture of the 6 PCC vehicles that are part of the El Paso streetcar project. As you may recall, the original agreement that we entered into with Brookville was for $18,794,000. We've issued one change order to date, and that was for various items, including a change to the windows. There was lead abatement in the paint and that sort of thing. That added $77,872 to the base agreement amount. And this change order is seeking to add another $189,103.28. Specifically, what we're looking at under this change order is the addition of 5 specific items. The first item is a truck lifting spreader bar. This, in effect, when you think of streetcar vehicles, there are trucks on which the vehicles actually sit. This bar is required. It's a maintenance item that is required for any operating system to pick up trucks and move them around your maintenance and storage facility. This was inadvertently omitted from the initial agreement. So we're adding this, and that adds about $3,150. We're also adding, at Sun Metro's request, sunshades for the drivers. This is a standard item that's on Sun Metro's vehicles, and it makes sense to add it, and it's a minimal cost of $2,156. There's also roller curtain destination signs. So if you recall, when you're looking at a streetcar, an original streetcar, they had the destination signs in the two windows up on top. They used to have this roller curtain that showed where they were headed, the destination sign. The original plan, as proposed by Sun Metro and the consultants that were developing the designs, was to replace those with LED signs. However, at Sun Metro's request, we are seeking to replace the original version, which is the roller curtains, for a more historically accurate view. I would note the destination sign does not change terribly often, so the need for LED signs is really not there, and it's more historically accurate. That cost is an additional $23,498. Event recorders are being added to each of the 6 vehicles, and that you could imagine that as a black box for the vehicles. So the system that is being placed in each of the vehicles has the ability to record speed and anything that you can think of in the event of some sort of an incident. But it did not include the event recorders or the black boxes. So we're adding those at a minimal cost of $1,948. And lastly is the special tools and equipment, which has a value of $158,351.28. The point of this item, and in fact, actually I should mention, this item was in the original procurement. It was removed once the bids initially came in. While we worked out the budget, the prices had come in a little bit higher than we had anticipated, so we're coming back for this. But these are really specialty tools and equipment that are required when you launch a system. So $158,000 worth of specialty tools and equipment are being added as the 5th item. So again, this change order adds $189,103.28. I would mention from a budgeting standpoint that there is plenty of contingency remaining, so this has no significant negative impact upon the project budget from the vehicle side or the overall project budget. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item as well.
Mr. Wardy?
Why were the tools omitted from the original bid?
So when the initial bids came in, they were extremely high. So at that time, we went back and value engineered, which in effect means take it down to the bare minimum. What do you absolutely need to operate?
I know what value engineering is, Mr. Tate.
For the benefit of the public then, right? So the idea was, what do we really need? And at that point, the thought was, let's take any and everything out that we can, get it down to the base number that we absolutely need to get this thing up and running and in place, and then we'll add back those items over time through the contingency budget that we set aside as we have comfort with a contingency. So that's why we're adding it back at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Niemer?
The Sun Metro is working directly with the supplier of these vehicles, and they're the ones that work out this matrix and what they need and what they want. Is that correct?
Well, we do. Now, Sun Metro is engaged with us, and Sun Metro
who are
makes... Sorry. So the Regional Mobility Authority has... when I say we, it's the Regional Mobility Authority who has engaged the design firm, which is AECOM, who then has a sub by the name of LTK. They are vehicle specialists. So when I say we, it's LTK working with AECOM with RMA oversight. So LTK is the direct day-to-day group that is working with Brookville Equipment Corporation on the development of the specs and making sure that what they are proposing meets the specs that were developed by LTK initially. However, for several of these items, like the roller curtain, that sort of thing, the spreader bar, that was something that was omitted, so we're adding that. The roller curtains or the sunshades and those types of things are, as Sun Metro has been engaged for quite some time, they realize, hey, we'd like to have sunshades for our drivers, so they make a request to the RMA, so that's how it goes.
Okay, Sun Metro has a seat at the table.
Yes, sir, absolutely. They have to. Ultimately, they will own and operate the system, so they need to be engaged, and they have been since just about day one.
Okay. Well, I'm really surprised at how expensive these vehicles are. What happens if a seventh is purchased, what would the price of that be?
So I can get you that number. I won't remember off the top of my head.
On the same order?
I want to say it's about $1.6, $1.7 million for a seventh vehicle. And the reason I say that is that within the procurement that we put out on the street, we asked for a bid for 6 vehicles, and then we asked for an ad alternate in the event that we had sufficient surplus funds or we found money somewhere. We asked for the cost for a 7th vehicle. So I will get you that 7th vehicle number, but it's about...
And an 8th and a 9th?
I think we would
never
likely
need
have
those.
to negotiate an 8th and a 9th. I believe the bid that came in was specifically for the first 6 and then the 7th. But I can look at that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next question.
Yes, ma'am. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Tejas, where are they in terms of the work completing these renovations of the cars? And the reason I ask is I understand there's a lot of contingency, but if we're early on the work that needs to be done, we can anticipate additional change orders coming on. So I'm trying to understand, the last time we had a briefing, or at least when I was here, there was very little, I think one car had been stripped down and that was it.
Yes.
So I kind of want to know what the progression of work is in terms of, before we start doing change orders on add-ons and stuff that Sun Metro would like to see that aren't, in my opinion, necessary to some extent. That we
Certainly.
should hold off on.
So let me touch on that. I'm going to ask Mr. Chuck Berry to approach the podium, and he'll provide details in terms of percentage completion and that sort of thing. But let me speak very generally about the agreement that the RMA has with Brookville. It is an as-is, where-is agreement. So there will likely not be a great number of change orders going forward, with the exception of those that are owner-initiated. And that's because of the structure of this agreement. This agreement was structured so that the bidders came out, they looked under the vehicles, they climbed up on, we had ladders out there, they were climbing up on top, they were looking at every aspect of the vehicles that they could. And the intent was, you, bidder, are bidding on this vehicle as you see it here today. You're responsible for picking it up, taking it to your shop, tearing it all the way down, and building it all the way back up for this set cost. Change orders are almost without exception, are owner-initiated. So that's an important point. However, I'd ask Mr. Berry to let you know where we are.
Good morning, Board. My name is Chuck Berry. I'm with AECOM and your program manager for the vehicle portion of the project, and we are working with Mr. Tejas and Mr. Gardner as the overall project program manager. As it stands now, the vehicle contract is in the tail end of the design that was scheduled for the project. They'll be wrapping that up over the next month or two and moving into the remanufacture of the vehicle. Just this last October, we participated in a meeting in Brookville, Pennsylvania, where where the BEC, the Brookville Equipment Corporation, demonstrated the operator cab mock-up. They mocked up a cab for our review. Sun Metro was there, AECOM was there, and LTK, our vehicle specialist, also participated in those meetings. It went very well. So right now they're wrapping up the design. They are mocking up several components for the vehicles. They've instructed us so far that this is the first time they are working to mock up a lot of the components, and they believe it is really helping their schedule along with identifying conflicts for these vehicles, because even though we have 6 identical vehicles out there from vehicle to vehicle, since they were the way they were manufactured, there are some variances between one vehicle and the next, so they're able to iron those out before they get into production. Remanufacture, let's see, one of the vehicles is stripped down to the metal and will begin its structural repairs within weeks, if not already begun. The other 5 vehicles are in stages of moving into that process as the first vehicle moves through. The last report for the vehicle progress has everything on schedule for delivery per the contract requirements, with the exception of one minor difference, and we've asked Brookville to address, but there was a question about one day of difference between the contract and the progress report that they should easily be able to address between now and next month. I think an important thing to note is that everything is on schedule, and have been little to no big surprises. But we had anticipated, since this is a remanufacture process, that it would take some time to get the vehicle designs completed. And there are probably on the order of, there could be 50 design reports associated to the project, maybe as few as 30, but there could be as many as 50 design reports for each of the major components on the vehicles that have gone through very stringent review. We meet with them weekly, and just this last October, as I reported, we met with them in person up there in Brookville. Kicked the tires, not really, but we saw the steel wheels and the trucks. We saw the vehicle. Mr. Benajic got into the operator's seat and simulated operation of the vehicle, and that meeting actually went very, very well. I'm open to any questions if you have any. I think that kind of sums up where they stand right now.
Any questions for Mr. Berry?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome.
you.
And I'm not sure when our next quarterly report might be for a vehicle update, but that would be the kind of information we would provide to you in the quarterly
Next
update.
month.
Appreciate it.
It's next month?
Next month.
So I better get ready now.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll think of some more questions for them.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Board, thank you very much.
Okay, so we're on item number 10. Entertain a motion unless there's any other questions or concerns. Okay,
Move to approve.
thank you.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So item number 10 has been approved. We'll go on to item number 11. Discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute an agreement with Level 3 Communications, LLC, as it relates to the El Paso streetcar project. Mr. Tez.
Yes, ma'am. So the board, you'll likely recall this item as well. This came to the board several months back, and the board voiced some concerns with some of the contractual provisions that were listed within the original draft agreement. So we've sent it back, and our attorneys have worked with Level 3's attorneys and have made several revisions to the original document. Among those, we have added a provision that in the event that there are additional costs proposed to be incurred by Level 3, that they must seek and receive written prior approval for those additional expenses prior to incurring them. So that's, I think, a big one. We made the indemnification and insurance requirements reciprocal. And the third one is that there is a reduced total cost. We spent a little more time going through the initial proposed costs. We found some revisions to the way that these improvements and relocations could be made, and we reduced the cost significantly. So those were the three major revisions to the proposed Level 3 agreement. So subject to your questions, I would request or recommend approval of this item as well.
Mr. Wardy?
I couldn't help. I've got to bring this up just because I'm in that mood today, I guess. On page 2 of the agreement, in black, bold, capital letters, Level 3 makes no warranties or representations, express or implied, either in fact or by operation of law, with respect to the work or as to any other matter whatsoever, including satisfactory quality and fitness for a particular purpose. Can you explain
Yes, sir.
that clause to me?
I think the point, the real point here is that these are relocations of their facilities that are not for us. They don't serve us. They're not for our project. They are simply relocations. So in effect, the RMA, if they don't do work well, it doesn't matter to us because it's for their system. So and I probably should have worded that a little more artfully.
No, that's probably the right way to word it, Mr. Taylor.
Right, but the gist is that these are not facilities or they're just not facilities that the RMA will use.
I've never seen a company put a statute in to protect themselves from their own work. So,
If I could make one comment. I worked with Mr. Tejas a little bit on this agreement. I want to credit him for, trying to get Level 3 to be reasonable. I think you accomplished a few things. I still don't think this is a particularly reasonable agreement, personally. I think one of the big issues that was brought up is that we're paying them before they even start the work. They were not willing to change that. I know that Mr. Tejas really tried. I think we're in this situation where we don't really have a choice at this point. But I'm a little disappointed with the way Level 3 has handled itself in those negotiations. So I just wanted to point that out, that I did mark it up substantially, and they were able to get some of them, but not all of them. There's still some concerns.
Okay. Thank you. Noted. Thank you very much. Appreciate your work on that.
Madam Chair,
Weimer.
I was very much struck, of course, by what happened to the price. It's been cut by more than a factor of 2. But who is advocate for the RMA when, this is negotiated? It seemed like before Level 2 just put up, well, here's this matrix and here's what we're going to charge. And we have someone on our side looking at this as well and assessing reasonableness. Is that correct?
We do. So part of our our general engineering consultant team has a work authorization with us to do construction management. Included in that is the review of the utility activities.
And so they reviewed it the first time?
They did.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That's the role that they play
Yes, ma'am.
for us. Okay, number 11, item number 11. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I'm going to vote no, just because I don't like the way they behaved on this, and I'm not in
Okay,
agreement.
noted. Thank you. Okay, so number 11 is approved. Item number 12, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute and submit documentation of eminent domain authority to the Texas Comptroller as required. Mr. Tejas.
Yes, ma'am. So this item is a standard item that we see each year. The Texas Comptroller, pursuant to a particular statute, is required to request and receive and compile information from agencies that have the power of eminent domain. So what you see as backup is a board resolution, and I'm seeking authorization to submit the annually required information to the Texas Comptroller. And you can see from the backup the types of information that they're looking for. Really, in essence, what they're looking for is, did the agency use eminent domain the prior year, which we did not, and are we planning to use eminent domain in the coming year, which we are not. So that, in effect, is what this is. This is a statute that requires compliance. So with that, I'm seeking approval of the resolution that would authorize me to submit this information to the Texas Comptroller.
So it's an annual requirement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 12 passes. Item number 13, presentation and discussion on the following performance reports for the first quarter of fiscal year 2017. Let's go to item number A. Well, I'll just read all of them. Item number A, El Paso Bike Share and Sun Cycle Program. B, Cesar Chavez Express Toll Lanes. And C, General Engineering Consultant Team's use of local resources. Mr. Tejas.
Thank you. So for this item, item 13A, we have a PowerPoint that will provide all the details for you. You've each been provided the performance report in a memorandum. And I should note, just as we do with all of these quarterly presentations, after the board meeting, we will upload these items online so that they'll be available to the public. So if I could have IT bring up the PowerPoint, I'll walk you through the performance report for quarter 1 of fiscal year 17, which I would mention is September, October, and November of 2016. Here's just for everyone's benefit. This is the map of our program. 15 stations. We have 160 bikes. I'd mention also Cesar Martinez, who operates the program for us, is here in the audience. Did you have any technical questions? I'm going to punt them over to him. So this slide here shows you all of the activity that's occurred in the initial fiscal year as well as the first quarter of fiscal year 17. So you'll see the highlights really in fiscal year 17. And in that first quarter, the first 3 months, we had 4,000 rides, which is significant. That was a good number as the months started to get a little bit colder. So I'm very happy with that. Number of minutes is over 177,000, almost 178,000 minutes ridden. Miles are at 21,369, which I think is great. Average ride went up a little bit this quarter from the prior. They're up to 43.98 minutes per ride. Average ride is about 5.28 miles. So then you see the carbon offset of 20,208,000 pounds, 850,824 calories burned by riders in that 3-month period, which is always an interesting number to report. So you see the program, I think, did quite well in the colder months. Here's some program highlights. San Jacinto Station saw the most checkouts in this quarter. That replaced Pioneer Plaza, which is interesting, and it did so significantly. So San Jacinto Station has strongly taken over as the number one station for checkouts. It's well ahead of Pioneer Plaza, which is second. Cleveland Square and Anthony Street follow Pioneer Plaza. Sunday remains the most active day, followed by Saturday, and the rides are now peaking between 7 and 10 p.m. In the prior quarter, the peak was between 8 and 10 p.m. It's starting to flatten out a little bit.
Well, I think when you and I were visiting on this, I think the time is sort of interesting, that it's between 7 and 10 in the evening.
Right.
So we don't know what people are coming back, or there's a lot of activity, which is great for downtown.
That's right.
People
I think you see so much activity at night when you come to San Jacinto Plaza, which really correlates directly to our station placed right there next to the square.
Do we know
So
exactly where those rides are primarily between during that time frame?
we do, in fact. During the time frame.
Yeah,
I
between
don't know
7
that
and
we've
10.
run. I don't know that we've run any queries like that, but we'll look into doing that because I think that would be an interesting.
It's just interesting if
evaluation
they're
as well.
going between the different entertainment areas, perhaps.
I
don't
will
know.
say this final bullet here shows of the top 50 routes that we have, 4 of them are round trips, and the first one is San Jacinto. So people are leaving San Jacinto, going somewhere else, and coming back and checking in at San Jacinto. The second is Pioneer Plaza round trip. Anthony Street and Cleveland Square are the top the top 4 routes. So we are seeing quite a bit of round trips still. This, I won't go through all of this. This is really summarized on that first major slide. But this is, as I mentioned, these are posted online, so the public has the opportunity to look through this particular quarter and see the breakout of 24-hour passes, the day passes that are purchased versus semester, 30-day pass, or even the annual membership. So there's a lot of good information in here. This shows trip volume by membership types, as well as the number of bike trips and how long they are. This next one shows the trip volume by day of week, which shows, as we talked about, Sunday is the highest, the most used day, along with Saturday coming in a second. And that's where you see that bottom graphic there shows you the peak extending from 7 out to 10. So again, this is really for the benefit of the public. So this is the financial activity through fiscal year 17. And I'll have to come up with a better way of presenting this, but what I did here was just simply add this next quarter below the initial fiscal year. So you can see we had revenues of $20,139.17, expenses of $48,177.27. And that, you see, is a significant increase from the prior quarter, because this is the first quarter that we have the full expanded system, where we've in effect doubled the number of bikes. We've almost doubled the number of stations. We've gone from 8 to 15, but in bikes we have doubled from 80 to 160. So you see a significant increase in terms of operating expenses there. But the good news is in the final column, which is the operation and maintenance funds that remain available to us. And I'll remind you, the way that we structured this program in the very beginning through our first 2 phases was that we went and got grants in the amount for the first phase of $720,000 and the second phase $584,000. And when we structured these programs and went and got those grants from the granting agencies, we explained that what we would do is we would spend roughly about half of those granted funds on capital expenditures, so bikes, kiosks, and the like, and the remaining half would then be put away for us to use for operating and maintenance expenses into the future. Coupling that with revenues generated from fares and eventually the partnership, the sponsorship program, which we're going to touch on here in the next slide, would then provide our sustainability into the future. Having said all of that, we still have over $500,000 in operating and maintenance funds available to us. So I wanted to touch on the promotional program. I know that I've briefly touched on this in prior updates. What we're doing, and in fact I hope to have to you at the February meeting, the actual promotional program campaign and with the graphics and all of the supporting documentation. But really what we're looking to do is develop two components. One is a partnership program, another is a sponsorship program. Under the partnership program, the idea is that we would provide passes at a discounted rate, whether they're annual passes to large employers, and we have examples of that are architectural and engineering firm in downtown, where we've provided annual passes to them that they use for their employees to get to and from city buildings to drop off plans and that sort of thing. We could develop programs like that for heavy employers in the downtown area that are interested in having say 5 or 10 different annual memberships so that their employees have access to these bikes at any time. So we have that opportunity. We also have reduced costs for the day passes themselves, and we've done this. An example of this, we've done one already. The example is partnering with Velo Paso, which is the bike and pedestrian advocacy group. What we've done with them is we've provided them with 100 passes at a reduced rate, day passes, and they have the ability. In fact, what they are doing now is on a monthly basis. In certain months, they've done more than one, but generally on a monthly basis, they have a campaign where they offer the passes to folks that are interested in learning about bike safety and learning about the rules of the road for bikers in the downtown area. So they'll promote that. People come down, they hand them the pass, the folks get a free ride on SunCycle, and Velo Paso teaches them how to ride safely in urban areas. So that's an example of how we can provide reduced costs for bulk sales of day passes. And other examples include providing a stack to Indigo Hotel or any of the hotels in the area, so that hotels can offer free day passes to our bike system to their patrons. Bars, restaurants, the like. Even multi-day special events, whether it's a convention center, a convention in town, or a multi-day concert event downtown, something like that. So we have different ways of promoting this, and I think that is a good way to expand our ridership, and it's under our partnership program. The sponsor program then is a little more straightforward, more like I imagine what you anticipate or have seen in the past. This is where you would actually have advertising within as part of the SunCycle program. So that would be branding on the bikes themselves, whether it's the front tire, the rear wheel, or the shrouds themselves. We could have advertising on the kiosks themselves as well as the maps. So lots of different opportunities within the sponsor program as well. So when you combine the partnership program along with the sponsor program, that really encompasses the promotional program that we're developing. And as I mentioned before, we hope to have this to you in February. Here are a couple of graphics that kind of show you what we're looking at right now. And this is part of the partnership program that we're developing. But again, I'll have much more detail for you hopefully at the February board meeting. So I think that is all that I have for you on SunCycle, subject to your questions, of course.
Well, I want to recognize Cesar, because I see him out downtown always redistributing our bikes out there. So I know you're on top of it. So thank you very much. Thank you. Well, it's something, this promotional program, I think, Raymond, is really important because we're getting so much ridership, even though, we're in wintertime. I think it's important. It is a great time to go to businesses and ask them to help promote their businesses, but also offsetting bringing some revenue also in. I understand that not every cycle program that is in placed across the country makes, nets out a profit. But if we can offset our expenses with that, I think that would help us sustain this program. I think it's a great program. I think people obviously are using it and enjoying it, and so we want to make sure we can sustain it for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So the next one is our Cesar Chavez.
Yes, ma'am. So
Report.
today we have Cesar Nevades, who's part of our general engineering consultant team, and he's going to brief you on the first quarter of fiscal year 17 on Cesar Chavez.
Good morning, members of the board. Cesar
Good morning.
Nevades with the GEC. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you the Cesar Chavez Performance Report. On this slide, we have transactions per working day, which are the number of vehicles going to the facility per day. The graph is represented by quarters, and by bars, which are the bars are just total vehicles per any given month. The yellow bars represent fiscal year 2015, blue bars represent fiscal year 2016, and the purple bars represent fiscal year 2017. In comparing the last quarter of fiscal year 2016, there's an increase on the first quarter of fiscal year 2017. Now we have total transactions. The table on the box on the top right provides fiscal year 2017 transactions year to date versus fiscal year transaction forecasted with a 54% difference. In addition, the box on the top right provides fiscal year 2016 transactions versus fiscal year 2016 forecast with a 26% difference. The graph is represented by quarters and by bars. The bars represent dollar amounts for AVI and pay by mail. AVIs are transponders or tags that customers place on their windshields, whereas the pay by mail customers do not have a tag. Essentially, they receive a bill and which includes a service fee. The graph is represented by quarters and bars. Once again, the yellow bar represents fiscal year 2015, the blue represents fiscal year 2016, and the purple represents fiscal year 2017. In comparing the last quarter of fiscal year 2016, we notice that there's an increase for the first quarter of fiscal year 2017. In addition, the AVI penetration has been analyzed, which is represented by the different line styles. Focusing on the first quarter of fiscal year 2017, we noticed that fiscal year 2017 first quarter, which is represented by the gray with line style with circles, almost matches the fiscal year 2016, which is represented by the red line style with diamonds, except for the month of November, which there's an increase. Pay by mail is the preferred method for motorists at the facility, which are the infrequent users. Moving on. Now we have total revenue. Once again, the box on the top left provides us with fiscal year 2017 year-to-date collected versus fiscal year 2017 year-to-date forecast with a 45.5% difference. In addition, the fiscal year 2016 shows actual collected versus fiscal year 2016 forecast with a 3.5% difference. The graph is represented by quarters within the fiscal years and additionally by the bars. The yellow bar represents forecast and the purple bar represents collected. Focusing on the first quarter of fiscal year 2017, it is noted that there's a drop. And this, the reason is unknown. A possibility might be that in speaking with other motorists, due to the ongoing construction projects throughout the city, sometimes it's not as easy to access the facility. Moving on, transaction and revenue summary. This table represents before presented data combined, which includes transactions, revenue per pay period. The following slide shows revenue and expenses, and the table provides actual revenue, actual expenses per fiscal year. And a note for fiscal year 2017, the amounts shown are only for the first quarter. Expenses include maintenance, insurance, operations, and collections. Moving on to our last slide, the Veteran Waiver Program. This program was established to provide disabled veterans with a certain percent of disability a waiver to use the facility. Year to date, 109 tags have been issued with 10,650 program transactions, which accounts for 2.36% of total transactions. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Any questions or comments? Continues to be a challenge, but I think a lot of that had to do with construction, because I know you're visiting with people, you're not certain if you're able to get on because of the construction at the Coles Exchange, and so sometimes that's closed, and I think people are uncertain about being able to access, and certainly Paisano being closed has also impacted our numbers.
Well, and I would mention as well that a number of our users are heading from the far east side to the far west side. At least historically, they were utilizing that route. During this prior period, there was still construction going on at the Americas interchange, so 375 and I-10. So it was difficult at certain times to get onto 375 on the far east side. Then once you got in on 375, there was a question as to whether or not you could get through what's now being constructed for Coles interchange as part of the Border West Expressway. Then once you got off in downtown, streetcar was doing a lot of work in the area. And then, but more importantly, you couldn't get onto Paisano, and you still can't. And Paisano is going to be closed until February. So when you look at it from east to central to downtown to west, each area is being impacted by the various construction projects. So this is having a significant impact on our usage. Now, some of the good news is that we understand from TxDOT that Paisano will reopen in February. So that won't be good news necessarily for our next quarter, but the following quarter, we're hopeful that will reconnect those folks that are trying to get to the far west side.
We're still selling tags, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we still are.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Nevadas? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. And our last one, our GEC is going to report on our local resources.
Yes, ma'am. Under 13C, we have David Head with us, and he's going to report on the consultant team resources.
Good morning. Last but not least, I'm David Head with the GEC, and I'll be reporting on the consultant use of local resources. So we'll go through the life-to-date data, then we'll look at the graphics. I think you've seen these before, and then we'll do a summary by firm, any questions you may have. So this is the quarterly summary from inception to now. If you look down the left side, you can see the quarters, and they start in February, and that's kind of the way, I guess, it was started from the very beginning. And if you look down the page to quarter 31, that's the August to October that we're looking at this point. As you move across the slide, you'll see that the local labor dollar amounts are there for each quarter, and the percentages for those quarters. So you have the local labor first, and then you have the non-local labor. As you go to the bottom of the page, the red box at the bottom are the last 4 current quarters, which will give you kind of an idea of where we're going with the local labor. And At the very bottom is quarter 31, which is we're at 89% for the local labor versus the non-local labor. And it's we've spent around $732,000 for this quarter. And then at the very bottom is the inception to date totals. You can see those, and we're at 53% for the local labor. So this is the quarterly summary. This is the data in a graphic form that you just saw. And so what's represented on the left side vertical axis is the dollar amount by quarter for each of those bars, the gold bar and the purple bar. So as you move across on the bottom, you see the quarters, and the quarter that we've been talking about is quarter 31. It's on the very right-hand side. So with that, you can see the gold bar is the local labor, and if you come across to the left side, you can see it's representing that $732,000 that was spent. Now, at that, you can see the squiggly lines. The gray squiggly line is the percent local by quarter. So if you go up from quarter 31 on the right side of the vertical axis, you can see we're talking about the 89% there. And as you can see, that trend is going up. It's been jumping quite a bit lately. I think I would contribute that to a lot of the construction that's going on and the local force that we're using out there to oversight that construction. Then the purple line that you see there is the local to date, so we're at 53% and moving. So I think that this will probably taper out because we're getting pretty close to almost 100%. But we are moving over into the construction side of things, and so we'll use a lot more of that local labor. So with that, this is the summary by firms that the GEC has been utilizing, and you can see there that those numbers are represented. So with that, I would entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Head. Anybody has questions for Mr. Head? I like the report. I mean, it's good. I think that's something that the board has already always sought, and we thank you for engaging our local engineers and construction personnel. I think that's terrific. That's what we're hoping for. We like those numbers. I don't know if we can sustain 89%, but they're good.
I think it'll be going up.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So, I think we're at the end here. Okay. No more business in front of the RMA. Would move or accept a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a second? Did I get a
Second.
second? Okay, it's been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the RMA is now adjourned on January 11th, 2017 at 10:30. Thank you, everybody.
Committee that's supposed to oversee.
Painless.
Earlier to move.